This is a meeting of the Finance Subcommittee to discuss a number of issues. I believe the last time we met, we actually recessed. We had talked about FY 11 budget, a little discussion on FY 12, and we recessed to a later date, this being the later date to discuss this year's budget, FY 12 budget, as well as I had filed a motion and asked to have some clarification on one of the contracts, the Amoresco contract, the energy performance contract. So that's the purpose of this meeting. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Broderick. Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
2 present, 1 absent.
2 present. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, let me also recognize the mayors here, Councilor Patrick Murphy, Councilor Rudy Marcia, manager and his staff. So without any further ado, Mr. Manager, I know you have a presentation. You have been visiting neighborhood groups and providing this presentation. So without any further delay, if you want to go into that presentation, and we'll have a discussion of the FY 12 budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I do have a presentation, and I have been sort of on tour going around to the neighborhood groups to give the residents and taxpayers a sense of the financial condition of the city. We haven't spent, as you'll see, and I'll go through it quickly because it is a lengthy presentation. It's very much the same document, same presentation I've made to the City Council in the past, much of the same information, but we are trying to give the residents a sort of a better understanding of the pressures that the City Council and the City Administration are facing with regards to the finances. But I think also importantly, and you'll see in a second, it gives a sense of where the city has been and where the city is going in terms of its overall finances. So why don't I'll try to go through that quickly, and then we have a handout that spells out in more detail the FY 12 budget problem defined, as we so call it. What I've been trying to do with the neighborhood groups that I've been meeting with, and there's other organizations that have asked me to make presentations as well. One of the points I'm starting with is the fact that we have been doing fiscal forecasting for the last 4 years. That's significant in terms of projecting out what we can afford moving forward. That I think that's an important part of what we do in our financial management, is looking ahead to say what can we afford with debt, what can we afford with our collective bargaining agreements, what can we afford with our staffing plans, by looking at what the future really holds for us. So forecasting is important, but what's equally important, I think, is looking at trends that we can look at and say, this is how things have gone over the last few years. Does that show some warning signs for us in terms of the city's finances? And it also gives us a sense of the council and the residents and the administration, just a general check of our health. What I've been featuring in this look at our trends are, again, issues that the council is certainly well aware of: our declining state aid, our free cash reserve that's been drawn down over time, which was utilized to essentially keep property taxes artificially low. And that money, of course, is pretty much gone. The increase in our fixed costs, especially health insurance, loss of positions, an increase in net school spending that we're very proud of, and increased reserves, which is sort of contradictory to the free cash reserve, but I think, as you see when I go through the presentation, it actually does make sense. In terms of state aid, and I'm operating now from a standpoint of not being able to read the numbers, but the purple line indicates the state aid that goes to schools. And essentially in 1990, this is something that's been shown to the council before. In 1990, state aid to schools was roughly $22 million, whereas general local aid was about $27 million. Today, in fiscal year 12, school aid is up by $100 million, up to $122 million, whereas our general local aid has actually lost some 16 or 17 million dollars. It's actually lower now. It's about $11 million, 11.4. It's lower now than it was 21 years ago, which is a staggering fact that, and this is in real dollars, it's not adjusted for inflation, we have far less money for a general local aid. And that obviously puts a pressure on us. In terms of property taxes, we've got two things going on this particular graph. One is showing that for the period of 2000 till roughly 2005, property taxes on the base level didn't go up a lot, which I'm sure was very welcomed by the taxpayers of the city. But the reason that occurred is the blue line is the free cash that the city had, and it built up over a period of time. And in fiscal year in 2002, it peaked at around $18 million, and then began to be utilized to keep taxes down, keep taxes from having to increase. The purple part of the bar graphs is the base amount of taxes. The yellow represents new growth. So you can see the cumulative effect of new growth that we've had. So the effect of this is that from 2002 until 2006, when we went into the negative in free cash, we were actually operating on a structural deficit. We couldn't sustain this over into the future. And of course, it bottomed out in 2006, having an effect upon fiscal year 2007 most dramatically. After that point in time, we did put in place the property tax policy that we utilize of that 2.5%. To control how much taxes grew, but also along with that put in place policies, financial policies, as to building up our reserves. So essentially this chart is showing you how taxes were controlled, how it drew down reserves very dramatically, and it was just not sustainable. And really doesn't meet the criteria of being best practice with regards to reserves or the how taxes are utilized. Again, we've been trying to use that new growth to sort of cushion for us in terms of our operation. Another interesting chart that I've shown, again going back to 2000, the red line is the state average, the blue line is the city of Lowell. In 2000, the difference between the state average and the average single-family home in Lowell was about $681. Today, in 2011, the difference between the two is $1,300. The city of Lowell is $1,300 under the state average. So over time, as other communities have continued to grow their taxes, the city has brought theirs under control. And you can see the sharp increases that happened in the mid-2000s and how with the 2.5% property tax policy we've instituted, we've brought that into a much more gradual increase over those since 2007. Looking at health trust expenditures, and this is something certainly that we've talked about. In 2000, the total expenditures that we had was $20 million, just over $20 million. Today, it's approximating $60 million. Over 10 years, it's tripled. So when you combine that with the loss of reserves, the decline in state aid, this growing expenditure, eating more and more of the budget, you really get a sense of where the squeeze is taking place. And in the reserves and the free cash reserves, and in a chart I'm going to show you in a minute on our other reserves, that's a positive. That it's certainly a negative if you go back to 2000 and see how much it went down, but then it starts to go up. That's the type of trend we want to look at and see. This is the type of trend we also want to see because it tells us there's something wrong and we have to fix it. And of course, we have taken actions to fix it with the adoption of Section 18A, the Medicare provisions requiring all new retirees to go into Medicare, but also to with the change that we've worked out with our collective bargaining units to eliminate master medical. But clearly, much work needs to be done here. When I talk to the neighborhood groups about this chart, I tell them, our pension liability, unfunded liability is about $150 million. Our health insurance, post-employment benefit unfunded liability is $690 million. So that's the one that the pension is brought under control by the actions of the legislature back in the 80s. We're winnowing that down by 2034. This is the one that really is out there, not only for the city of Lowell, but for every government organization. And so that's obviously a staggering fact for the taxpayers to hear, is we've got that type of liability out there. Positions lost. So how have we closed the gap? When we lose all that state aid and we have all these increasing costs, we've been forced to cut back on our workforce. That's where we spend most of our money. And this gives you a sense of what's happened with our workforce. Back in 2000, I think we had about 900, that I can't remember from here, about 950 employees. It peaked in 2000. The budget that was improved in 2007 had about 1,000 employees. And since that time, we have made about a 12% reduction in our workforce. We're now down to 880 people. The fact I try to hammer home with the residents is that clearly this is going to have some impact on services, but I think the departments and the employees have done a good job of minimizing the impact on services with a substantially reduced workforce. And it's also important to note that fire department has stayed essentially the same. Police department has dropped from about 244 down to 228. In terms of sworn personnel. So when you look at a 12% reduction, those two big departments have stayed virtually the same. That means that all the other departments of the city, particularly Public Works, have taken a huge hit to their workforce. But that's how we've closed the gap, largely, and turned things around. And obviously the benefit there is the direct salaries, but also the benefit costs that go with that. Net school spending is another positive for us. In 1993, when the Ed Reform Act was put in place, certain requirements were put in. There was money given to the cities and towns, but there were also requirements on how much money needed to be spent. The city of Lowell did not achieve its net minimum school spending until 2009. We first met it in 2009, came close in 8, but we actually met it in 9, went over. We've been over in 10, and we will be over in 11. And with the budget that we've provided to the school department for 2012, we believe we will meet that again and likely be a little over. So that's a major accomplishment for the city that we've been able to achieve that. A reserve balance. What we've shown here is again, this is a positive trend. Even though if you go back the full 10 years, you can see that there was a dramatic drawdown. The city of Lowell should have reserves somewhere in the vicinity of $15 to $20 million. 15 definitely. I would argue almost that we need to have 20 because the red part of that graph is actually the amount that we could tax if we wanted to. It's our excess levy capacity. And the yellow represents the money that was required to be set aside when the Oversight Board was here. The blue represents free cash. You can see that drawdown that we talked about earlier. It disappeared in 2006 into the negative. You can see just a sliver at the right-hand side of that graph where we last year created free cash once again. So it doesn't show a huge growth, obviously. We have a lot more work to be done, but we're heading in the right direction with regards to our growth. We also show in that graph, and you cannot see it, I know, a small purple line which represents the stabilization fund. For the first time, the city actually has set aside money in a stabilization fund. Again, a good practice for us to be following. I think the interesting question that was raised when I was out at the Highland Neighborhood Association talking about this is they wanted to know how many times the city of Lowell has passed an override. And of course, the city of Lowell has never passed an override. We're $5 million below, and every other community around us, of course, has passed an override, which effectively means they've gone over their levy limit by some amount, by getting the votes by their taxpayers, by their voters to actually do that. So the residents that I've been talking to were very very pleased to see we're heading in the right direction here, and they were very interested to know that we're we're holding the line on taxes, but also recognizing that there needs to be some increase there to maintain services. This is stuff that the council, obviously, I think it's important that the voters, the residents of the city know about, the taxpayers know about, is the actions that have been taken by the administration and by the city council to head us in the right direction with our finances, particularly during these tough economic times. So it's things like the voluntary layoffs that we've done, the incentive programs, minimizing the number of actual layoffs, the concessions that have been made, the actions we've taken on healthcare plans, the grants to maintain public safety, the Medicare vote that was taken, the not filling positions. That's how we've minimized the staffing. That's why we've cut it by 120, is simply not filling most positions. The contracts we've negotiated for electricity and gas, our conservative borrowing, the energy conservation measures we've taken, reorganizing departments for efficiencies, the renegotiation of solid waste, to the ambulance reimbursement, the spinners contract that we now actually receive money for, transferring the Songus, purchasing our streetlights, the hotel motel taxes and meals taxes, which draw upon the revenues that can come from outside the city, extending out the pension liability to 2034, the data programs we've done with regards to lean process for code enforcement, the cemetery maintenance plan that we're putting in place that's going to save $800,000 to $1 million over 3 years, overtime cost controls, trash enforcement without adding to payroll, reducing sick time by 1 day per employee. And with 880 employees, that's a substantial sum of money that we've done that. So, and that's all driven by, or all made possible by, the data-driven approach that we're now utilizing and working with our departments. For 2012, and maybe this is where we hand this out. I have to say that I've been doing this, I haven't gone through it this quickly, so I'm flying right now. But for 2012, and this breaks it down a little bit, we're looking at a reduction of an increase of $7.1 million to the schools, but a decrease of $1.5 million in unrestricted local aid. We're also looking at the snow and ice deficit of $2.8 million. Health insurance is going up, but only by $300,000 net. We're looking at a 5% rate increase, which is very good. We had been looking at 12 to 19 the past 5 years, largely to build up the reserves there because those have been drawn down very low by not properly putting the right premiums in place to hold down those costs. But we save $1 million by working with the unions to eliminate master medical. Also, in energy savings, very minor this year. Most of it's been being eaten up by gas and diesel costs increases. But we do see some tax increases in tax growth in the Appleton Mills project, which is coming online by the end of this fiscal year. And then the cemetery, which I've talked about, which we think, which we know will save about $300,000 this year. If I could just walk you through the chart that's there. You can see the breakdown that we have in terms of challenges that I've already spoken of a little bit. We're losing $1.5 million in the unrestricted aid. We're losing $1.4 million in school building reimbursement. We see a decline in local receipts, and we're evaluating this, continuing to evaluate this, but right now we're showing a decline of $800,000, the snow and ice deficit of 2.8, the increase in health insurance costs of 1.3. Again, it's offset, but wage increases, these are the settlements that we have, plus the step increases of $500,000. Right now, we're working off expense requests from departments of an additional $600,000, and then the cherry seed assessments are going up by $100,000. So it's a sizable amount of money that represents our challenges. These are offset by the levy increase of $2.6 million. That's that 2.5% that we've talked about. The new growth, the Appleton being the largest part of that, of $1.6 million. We do see that, up above, we talk about the school building reimbursement going down by 1.4, but we also see a decline in our debt service of 1.6. So that's an offset. The charter school savings, $600,000. That's less that's going to the charter schools this year. And then that health insurance savings we have from the elimination of master medical to offset the increase in health insurance costs that I just talked about a minute ago. And that leaves us with a total budget problem that we're facing right now on May 17th of $1.6 million. Mr. Moses and I and meeting with the departments, trying to whittle down their requests, and we're looking at our revenues, and we're looking at ways that we can close out some of that snow and ice deficit. And we will present to you in within the next 2 or 3 weeks a balanced budget that will have close this problem out. We did talk earlier about the presentation that we're going to be making, and I think this feeds in pretty well, actually. This is the budget process, and of course, all of you have been through this, so you know the budget process and how it's an ongoing process. We're working on fiscal years. We closed out fiscal year 2010 just a while back. We're implementing 2011. We're preparing the document for 2012 while simultaneously doing the forecast for 13, 14, 15, and 16. And this just gives you the budget process that we utilize of the governor submitting his budget in late January. We working with the departments, all in red there, and then ultimately everything comes to a conclusion in June. But what we've also been talking about is how the budget document itself has evolved. In 2007, the budget that you received had 63 pages. There was no overview or to educate or provide context, just line items and amounts for each department. Over time, from 2008 to 2010, it's now 130 pages. Not that page length is the determination of a good budget, but there's quite a bit more information. There's financial overviews, detail on revenues and expenditures, line items, and amounts for each department, as we all need when we're voting a budget, but also the financial policies, forecasts, a glossary, a capital plan. Last year, we added departmental descriptions and org charts. And this year, we're going to put much more in terms of performance into the budget. Detailed information about the departments and how they fit into the larger picture of our strategic plan, the achievements that each department has made, and the output measures, so that we can, moving forward, evaluate how departments are utilizing their money. That's really what counts, is how they're using their money more than anything else. So it's going from this. This is the budget you received in 2007 from Human Relations. Not a lot of detail, just dollars, which certainly is significant, but doesn't really tell you anything, to the budget document that you receive this year, which will have quite a bit more data, quite a bit more information, helpful to you as decision makers, certainly helpful to me as I evaluate the budget to present to you, and very, very important to the citizens of the city so that they understand where their tax dollars are going. So we just leave the groups that we meet with to talk about this with sort of a sense of the challenge that you, as the elected city council, face, and as the appointed city administration face. We've got this $1.6 million question or problem. And so the question is, why can't we just cut the budget? And we say, sort of tongue-in-cheek there, no problem, it's a large budget. And then we start going through the process that, this is from fiscal year 2010, which is the last year we've completed, obviously. It's about $282 million in total appropriations and costs. Right off the top, we have to cut off about $15 million, which is the state assessments and the deficits to be raised. And of course, this year our deficit to be raised is $2.8 million for snow and ice. Then we have the tax abatements and exemptions to the deserving taxpayers. That knocks us down again to $266. Schools, state gives us money for schools, and we have a certain amount that we have to put in. That brings us down to $134 million. Our debt service is fixed, and that goes towards all the school improvements we've made, as well as the library and other public facilities, our roads that we invest money in, our equipment that we invest in. That brings us down to $115. Then you get the fixed costs that we've grappled with. We've made progress on health insurance, and we've done things with pensions and other fixed costs, but those resist cuts. So now we're down to, and those are tough. So that's down to $70 million. I say it's tough because largely it's all a function of how the state sets up how we can operate on these fixed cost items. Greater Lowell Technical High School is a fixed assessment as well. Another $6 million off there that was out of our control, so that brings us down to 64.7. Public safety, and certainly this is something that the council has been very concerned with, as has I, as have the residents, that we're trying to hold on. We've got fewer police officers now than we did before. We went through a period of closing fire companies. We have minimized that with some transfers of funds and authorization of funds within those two departments. But we're down now, if you take that off of it, it's down to $29 million. And then you take off the items that we know. Again, we've saved money in trash. We've saved money in streetlights. We've snow removal. We don't have a lot we can do with that one other than to plow it. But hopefully this year we'll be able to save some money with the new equipment we bought. But we're now down to $21 million, $21.9 million. Then you have the other services, the other employees that we've had. They've already taken huge reductions in their workforce, which impacts services, and there is a price to that. And so now you're down to $7 million. Out of that 282, we've rapidly worked this down to $7 million, assuming we don't, avoid layoffs in those other areas that impact services and impact our unemployment costs. We have veterans benefits that we have to pay. That brings us down to 6.5. Then you have your operational costs, heat, electricity, gasoline. We've taken actions with our contracts, with our energy conservation measures to knock that down to $4.8 million. So that's what we have left. And we need 1.6. So we have to take 1/3 of the remaining $4.8 million to close the budget gap of, if we were to work off of this budget. So what does that money go towards, that 4.8? Goes to asphalt. We talk about paving roads and fixing sidewalks. That's where the money comes from, that discretionary money. The telephone service for City Hall, for the police station, fire station, the library, all of our communications. Mailing of bills, that's an operational cost that we don't have a lot of control over because you have to send out those bills and those costs continue to go up. The collection of the bills, traffic signals, the maintenance of those, pavement markings, which we don't do nearly enough of here in the city. Street sweeping, it's that time of year we're already getting the calls. Where's our street sweeper? The software licenses, the website, and all those other quote-unquote invisible services. So to cut the 1.6, there are no easy options. We know that. You know that as a city council. We have to make personnel decisions that we've done. We have to look at what is our essential services. We try to avoid cutting those, but we're quickly running out of options. Employee concessions, we've done it before. We're doing it, working with the employees now. That we've to try to close that 1.6 million. We could cut education, but we've made we're not giving them that $1 million of one-time money we gave them last year. I'm hesitant to cut more from that because we want to meet that net school spending, but to cut $1.6 million is a challenge, and so that's on the table there. Although I don't, again, we've already given them a number that takes off that $1 million, but leaves everything else intact for them. So what I've done, though, what I always tell them now is with the groups I meet with, and again, the council is already, all of this is stuff that the council has already seen before, but for the, what I do leave them with is some positives, that there is, the question put to me at one neighborhood group 2 or 3 years ago is there any hope? Well, actually, if you look at what we've done, the city council, the city administration, with our finances, is we've taken a bad situation in fiscal year 2006 that was tremendously challenging over the last 4 years with the recession, with the cuts in local aid, with the lack of growth taking place. And there are many indicators, our reserves and our overall debt and our cost structures. We've actually gotten some good news out of it all. Which is something I think that we should all be very pleased with and proud of. And the taxpayers and the residents should be proud of it as well. And the response I'm getting is very positive. But for instance, on the bond rating, our bond rating has actually improved. When you read about the other communities and states across the country that are actually talking about bankruptcy, and that was the panic a few months ago, they're talking about, going bankrupt. Our bond rating has actually improved. It's gone up in large part because of some changes in the way in which Moody's actually assigns ratings. But they did remove a negative outlook that was on the city and said, we're going to make you a stable outlook. And they've said that the city's effective management team continues to implement cost-saving strategies and prudent expenditure reductions to produce balanced operations. As I stressed to the residents, balanced operations is dollars and cents, revenues and expenditures, but it's also balanced in terms of the in terms of the services that we provide. And then, of course, as you all know, the Department of Revenue did take us off their watch list that we were put on back in 2006. And they've said that Lowell's done a remarkable job during difficult financial times over the past few years to improve their situation. Various internal controls that have been instituted have placed Lowell in a position to weather the difficulties that you face in this business. These are things that I think we should be very pleased with. There are votes that the City Council has taken, there's actions the City Council has taken, and certainly actions that the financial team, and I give a tremendous amount of credit to Tom, to Cheryl, to Dave McGurl and Sue LeMay and the other members of the finance team to really turn around the finances when you look at, as I say, the revenues and the maintenance of services. What I tell everyone we're leaving us, or what we want to be at, is we want to be leaner, right-sized, and a well-positioned government. As we come out of this bad economic time, we want to be in a better shape than where we were when we started, and I think we are that, and we want to be better off than our peer communities. And final point that I would make is looking at the bond rating. That certainly saves us money in terms of when we borrow. The rating that we receive affects our interest rates, but it also affects the growth that happens in the city, that the developers that come into the city, the major investors, want to be in a community that's stable. And I was told that by the people investing in the Hamilton Canal project. When they looked at where they were putting their money, they wanted to know the dollars and cents of the Hamilton Canal project, the Appleton Mill, made sense. They didn't want it to be a loser, but they also wanted to be investing in a community that is heading in the right direction and is a stable, financially managed and economically viable community. So this is what we've been going out and talking about. The problem, as I said, to summarize, is we're looking at about a $1.6 million shortfall right now, but I'm confident over the next couple of weeks we will close that up and get you that balanced budget.
Excuse me, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager. That was a good presentation, good recap of where we've been, where we are, and where we need to go. So, Councilor Mendonça?
Yes. You spoke about free cash, and we were lucky this year to have about $1.3 million. Could you speak to that, especially relative to the snow and ice deficit, and how we're going to manage that?
Well, we think that we'll have some money to, it's still, I know that the auditor has already issued instructions to the departments to sort of close out their purchase orders and get those in. The finance director, Tom, has been, while he's been working on the budget, has also been going through unexpended funds and putting freezes on certain accounts. Every year during tight times, its budgets get tighter and tighter, you get less and less in terms of savings in departments. It becomes more difficult for them to not spend money because they've already cut their budgets dramatically. I think we'll be able to we'll have some money that we'll be able to transfer over before we close out the books, either on June 30th or the end of July, middle of July, that we'll be able to transfer over to eliminate some of that $2.5 million shortfall. That will essentially wipe out, though, any excess we have in departments, I would think. And Cheryl and Tom can jump in and correct anything I say. Any free cash that we have, though, will be the result of revenues in excess of estimates. We're very conservative with our revenue estimates. And so that's where we're actually already seeing that. We're a little bit ahead of where we think we would be, where we thought we'd be on some of our permitting, because we've had some very large projects. And so that will help us generate some free cash there.
Okay. But to the extent we can identify it before the fiscal year is over, we're probably going to use the amounts for the snow and ice deficit to reduce that first.
On the expense side,
So,
right.
so
And the
there
revenue
probably
side, you
won't
can't
be
use.
as much
That's right.
in free cash going forward. One of the things I'd like to see in the budget is more information about our healthcare costs and expenses that justify the increases in health costs. So
Okay.
if we could have that. I had a question about the school funding, because your tally here doesn't include our reduction from last year of the 1 million that we added in, if you want to speak to that.
The amount that we added in last year, that that $1 million, was one-time money in money we had set aside in the budget for the snow and ice deficit, the 1.3. We were able to close that, and that freed up $1 million there. So, that's where that money came from. It wasn't an ongoing revenue. It was just a one-time money.
So in a sense, we no longer have that money
That's correct.
at all.
That's correct.
We'd have to cut somewhere else to provide that $1 million.
That's right.
The other and last item that I have, and you didn't speak too much about this, had to do with fees for inspectional services and health services and the likes. And I know when we increased the fees a few months ago, I commented I'll be looking at that to see if the revenues are commensurate with what it costs us to run those departments. And I looked at this year's budget, and it's more difficult this year because they're not organized into one department.
Right.
It'll be easier next year. But it seemed to me like we were getting more revenue than it costs us to run the departments. Now, that's just me looking at the budget, so I may have missed something. So, again, I'll be looking at that in the budget. I don't know if you want to comment on that now.
Well, I'll comment now as best I can. I think that with regards to the fee increases, I think going back, this goes back about 2 or 3 months ago, I think, we actually made the point, I think, that we were modifying some of the fees, but it was essentially designed to be revenue neutral. We weren't actually going to pick up any additional revenue with that. These were fees that they were no longer allowing us to charge for certain things, so we needed to charge different. We needed to structure all of our fees differently to meet the code, the way the code's written now, under the new provisions of the building code. When you look at the total amount of money we receive from those, as well as the amount of money that we're going out, I think you have to look at the full cost of what goes out, and it isn't just the salaries of the inspectional services people. You also have to look at the benefit costs that go with those, and also the time of the people with the permitting part of it, the time of staff that goes into reviewing and working with the permitting outside of inspectional services. That would be planning and development. It would also be the engineers office. There's a portion of time that goes in from there. So when you fully load all of those types of costs in, I would venture to guess that we're probably matching pretty evenly with that.
I understand that, so hopefully be prepared to justify all of that
Sure.
when we get to budget time. All in all, I'm really happy with what you've presented.
Thank you.
It seems like we have some challenges ahead, but they're not as dire as they've been in the past.
Right.
And I think they'll be manageable going forward, and hopefully not too many costs. And in the inspectional services side, I just have an understanding that it's very important to our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't want to see more cuts there if we're already running, no matter how small, a surplus in the revenue side of those services.
Okay.
So that's all.
Great. Thank you.
All set? Okay, thank you, Councilor. Some of my other colleagues are here, and they don't have any questions, so I just want to, I have a couple of questions as well. So, Mr. Manager, one of my concerns is, and I understand we have to close the gap, but as it stands now, this budget it includes a tax increase based upon the $2.6 million
the 2.5% increase, yes.
Understanding valuations are not complete. It was my concern last year. It's a concern again this year that we have to raise taxes. Councilman Johnson mentioned raising fees. What does this tax increase, I mean, bearing in mind, we'll have to either make more cuts to the 1.6, or it's just going to increase taxes even further. What is that 2.6? What can it be calculated at this point?
I think it's hard.
And I understand valuations are not in. I understand that's a whole separate process, but just generally speaking.
Yeah, do you have any sense of that? It's hard. It's hard to go to say specifically, and we can try to do something, some type of analysis, some type of presentation we can make to the council when we do the budget. If you didn't do that, obviously, if you didn't do the $2.6 million, the 2.5% increase, which again, I think that the response I'm getting from the residents is understanding that this is necessary. But if you didn't do that, then that problem would obviously grow. It would become $4.2 million that we would have to reduce, and we're struggling to get the 1.6 right now. But in terms of the impact on the households, we can make some type of projection. But again, as you've already pointed out, the valuations are going to change. Some valuations are going to stay the same, some are going to go up, some are going to go down. And so if we give just a general $70, $50, whatever we say, you know that there's going to be some that are going to go up 100, and there's some that are going to go down 50 or 100. So, but we can try to do some type of analysis, see if we can get some sense of that.
I think it's helpful. I'm not trying to hold
I
you to
understand.
a particular number, but when I'm out in the neighborhoods, I'm out at events, or people call, they want to know.
Right.
My taxes have increased over the last number of years. You outlined the increases through the chart.
Mm-hmm.
We have levy capacity. I understand that issue. But people want to say, okay, well, what is it going to be? What is this increase? And again, I understand some go up, some go down.
Right.
But people want to know, and that's why I ask you, what would this equate to? So that's.
Let's see if we can put something together on that.
And then I also know people say, well, what do you mean?
Right.
Mr. Lynch, you said back in May or June,
Right.
it was going to be this, yet my bill went up X amount. So I understand that, but I'm just trying to get a sense when people ask me what's going to happen, what does this mean, that we have some reasonable explanation for
And I'll
it.
tell you, we had an interesting discussion in one neighborhood that and it is very valuable to be out there. I think to be talking to the people in the neighborhoods. And there was one individual out of everyone so far has expressed some concerns, and he asked about Proposition 2.5. He said, I don't understand it. I'm here, it's going up 2.5%, but mine goes up more than 2.5%. And I explained that it's 2.5% on the total levy. And he said, well, that means, and I explained that some people, his goes up that much, but that means that someone else goes down. He said, well, do you have any numbers on that? We actually went back and we calculated. Last year, of the 27,000 parcels that we have, almost 4,200 actually saw a tax decrease. They went down. Large chunk were within a small range, and of course some people had more sizable increase, probably because they had made alterations to their home, or it was the nature of their home that just had retained more of its value. But we'll see. I understand what you're saying. We'll see what we can do to put something together on that.
Other questions on fiscal year 12?
Yes.
Council Marcia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the city manager. I wish we could have had a year where we're telling the public that we're not going to raise your taxes, but I know that's probably unforeseen, and I know that we have a gap of $1.6 million to try to, but I firmly believe that we could turn this all around. And I know that I'm not going to tell you that we need to hire more people. I know where people leave their position because they retire, and we don't fill that position, and we try to cross-train departments so that they can handle the shortfall. And I know that we're working the best that we can with a skeleton crew. I'm not going to deny that, we are. But I firmly believe that we could turn this around if we take a look at all the things that are happening in the city that can generate revenue, and that the people that are violating the law are paying and supporting this city. And by that I say, we only have one person that goes out and probably checks the recycling or the this or that. We have rules in place. We can't maintain all the laws that we have in place. But if we hire the right people to generate the revenue, to find the people that are disobeying the law and dumping stuff illegally where they shouldn't be and raising the fees for the perpetrators, I firmly believe we can turn this around. I'm telling you this. Now we have a law in the books about dangerous dogs, and I don't think we have enough to go out there to man it, so to speak. And I think we should be severely fining those that are violating the law, thus generating revenue, thus making this a better city, because the rules are out there that we have enforcement, and you are people that are putting graffiti, and we catch you, you're going to be fined severely. We don't create criminal suits, but civil suits that will go after your property if you're not going to pay. You know, this is the type of thing that I'm trying to say, that this could be a better city when those that are violating the rules are paying instead of burdening the people that are doing the right thing. I think we could turn this. This is my belief as to a fairer method. Not that you're not doing a good job on fair, but this is my belief that we have the wherewithal to, with the laws in place, but we just don't have the enforcement and the people that could generate that money coming in. And I don't want to scare people and say this is going to be a police state or a enforcement state, but I want this a cleaner city, I want it a better city, and I want those that are violating the rules to be paying instead of the good people that can't really afford it, that are doing the best to keep their property up, to doing the right thing. That's all I have to say about that.
Councilor, I couldn't agree with you more, and there are laws there are ordinances on the books for a reason, and we have to do everything we can to enforce those. 2 points. I don't know if all of the enforcement that we do would be able to close that budget gap, or certainly not enough to offset any talk about if we want to maintain services to offset any taxes. But I will tell you that one of the areas that that's very important to us as we analyze the performance of our departments is looking at the building and health inspectors and what they're doing in terms of getting out there and enforcing. And we actually have numbers now. We're tracking who's doing the job of going out and making those. And for trash, we're actually delegating that off to all of our health inspectors are required to now enforce the trash ordinances. It isn't just one guy. Sean Shanahan did an outstanding job for us, and he still is there. He's now working in inspectional services. But we have to have more people out there on the street. Everyone has to be more vigilant.
That's
but I
right.
agree with you completely.
Thank you.
We're going to have to wrap this up on this issue anyway. I did have just one question, and if at some point, Mr. Manager or Mr. Moses, if you could just get this information. I know we've been down. It looks like numbers go back and forth. Less than 150 employees. How many people? And I know some of them are out of necessity. Can you give us a number or a breakdown on how many we have hired since 2009 or 2008? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Some of them are out of necessity, and many, they're in the budget. But I'd just like to know, we've laid off or we've reduced this workforce by, 150 or 133. How many have we hired either out of obligation? Or necessity?
By that, Council, do you mean, Mr. Chairman, do you mean the all new hires, or do you mean new positions that have been created?
I'm just trying to find the variance between what we have reduced and those that we have also hired. When people say, well, and again, I'm responding to constituents to say, well, I hear that we've laid off people. Then there are notices, and and rightfully so. Some have to be had. I know we have to hire dispatchers. That's an issue that comes up all the time.
Right. We've had, we look at, the reason one of the departments that comes to mind is going off Councilor Mercier's comments a second ago. We've hired almost all new building inspectors. We have, I don't think there's any new building inspector that was here 4 years ago. And so those are new people,
Right.
but they're not new positions.
Well, and conversely, the same thing, we're hiring 8 new police officers, so some have retired.
And those
So,
are
You know
right.
what, why don't I call and give you a little bit more of a specific
We can-
idea as to what I mean, rather than, I know that we have to conclude our meeting. We didn't get to the Amoresco contract at all. We'll schedule another meeting. I did have just one question. Thank you for coming. I'm sure you wanted to learn about our FY 2012 budget. But, Mr. Manager, is this the
This is Mike.
contracting officer, or what
Yes,
is
this
this?
is Mike Enziger. He's our energy manager. It's contract position with Clean Harbors that he's actually running the energy, the Amoresco project for us.
So the city, hi, I'm sorry, could you give me your name again, please? Michael, okay.
Right.
And you're the contract officer for the city managing this contract, and
That's
you're
correct.
hired by whom?
By us.
By you?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I-
He oversees Amoresco.
Okay. You're the person I want to speak to then. Mr. Moses did give us, and I'll be very brief, if we could kindly ask you to come back maybe in a week or two to have a more thorough discussion. I'm just trying to get an understanding as to how this is working. I know it's new for us here in the city, and Mr. Moses provided some information on the split or the breakout of where the 21 million is going or supposed to go. As part of the contract, it includes that we have to sign off on a schedule of operations for each ECM, I suppose. And would you have that? Is there a schedule for each ECM and what the money is being spent on?
The overall schedule has been updated approximately 3 or 4 times since I've been on board. I can give you the most recent version that we have.
Okay. And just to give you an idea of what my concerns or questions are, under, I'll just say ECM 3, 4, 11, and 12, it lists certain items with the dollar figure. My question is, well, where would the variable frequency drives, pumps, where are they going? What is the specific? And I don't want all the minutia, but there's an ECM for roofs. There's an ECM for certain things. Where's that going? I mean,
I have also a list of where each ECM is being applied to building by building.
I think that would be very helpful
Yeah, I can get
to me. So if you can get it to the manager, and then
If that will
we'll schedule
set that up.
something. We'll schedule another meeting. I don't know what your schedule is, Mr. Manager. I think there's a public safety next Tuesday, so maybe 2 weeks. Mr. Clerk? Is there a public safety next Tuesday? Okay. So if we can meet in 2 weeks and just have a brief discussion. 5:30 again, Counselor? Is that okay?
Yep.
All right.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry we delayed on the FY 12. The manager said this was one of his quickest presentations. I can't imagine how long the neighborhood meetings are going, but thank you. Thank you for being here. Motion to recess by Councilman Donza, seconded by myself. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, so ordered. Thank you.